She married the cold billionaire to save her family business. Now he's kneeling with tears in his eyes. The flash of cameras illuminated tears streaming down Fletcher Ramsey's face as he knelt before Phoenix Dupree, his hands trembling as he held out a small velvet box. This wasn't the cold, calculating billionaire who had stormed into her boardroom 6 months earlier, threatening to dismantle her family's legacy piece by piece. This was a man broken open, vulnerable in a way that Manhattan's most ruthless acquisition king had never allowed himself to be. "I don't want our arrangement anymore," his voice cracked, those ice-blue eyes now warm with an emotion Phoenix had never thought him capable of. "I want something real." How had they arrived at this moment? How had the man nicknamed the Ice King by financial newspapers come to be on his knees, offering not a business proposition but his heart? 6 months earlier, Phoenix had stood her ground in the gleaming conference room of Ramsey Industries, her chin lifted in defiance despite the stack of foreclosure notices hidden in her briefcase. "My family has built Dupree Imports for 3 generations, Mr. Ramsey," she had said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her veins. "I won't let you dismantle it for parts like some vulture picking at a carcass." Fletcher Ramsey had sat at the head of the table, impeccable in his tailored charcoal suit, not a single dark hair out of place. His expression remained impassive as his cold gaze assessed her. "Sentiment doesn't keep businesses afloat, Ms. Dupree. Your company is drowning in debt since your father's stroke. I'm offering a lifeline, not performing a mercy killing." It was the first time their eyes truly locked, his piercing blue against her deep brown, and something electric passed between them, something neither was prepared for. A momentary crack in his glacial facade, a flicker of something beyond calculated interest. For just a heartbeat, Phoenix saw something almost human in the billionaire's eyes before the steel shutters came down again. What would you sacrifice for family legacy, and at what point does the price become too personal? If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join our Dear Love Diaries family. Your throne in this kingdom of stories is waiting for you. These passionate journeys of hearts colliding against all odds have brought together thousands of beautiful souls just like you. Make sure you hit the bell too, so you'll know immediately when a new story drops. Hello once again, my beautiful Love Diaries family. Tonight, we're gathering around our virtual fireplace for a story that reminds us why we protect our hearts so fiercely, and why sometimes, the bravest thing we can do is let someone in. This journey of Phoenix and Fletcher speaks to something many of us have experienced. That moment when we meet someone who challenges everything we thought we knew about ourselves. Those rare connections that arrive unexpected, unwanted even, yet transform us in ways we never imagined possible. Your messages about last week's story touched me deeply. So many of you shared how Janet and Michael's journey helped you see your own relationships in a new light. That's the healing power of stories, my dears. They remind us we're never truly alone in our struggles or our triumphs. Tonight's tale explores what happens when ambition collides with desire, when the walls we build to protect ourselves become the very prisons that keep us from the love we deserve. I'm curious, where in this beautiful world are you watching from today? Whether you're in a bustling city or a quiet village, drop your location in the comments below. Maybe someone watching this very same story is just a few miles from you. Phoenix Dupree moved through the warehouse of Dupree Imports with practiced efficiency, checking inventory lists against the shipping manifests. The scent of cardamom and sandalwood from their latest shipment filled the air, a familiar comfort that had surrounded her since childhood. This warehouse had been her playground, these exotic treasures from distant shores her toys. Now, they represented a legacy hanging by a thread. Ms. Phoenix, called Manuel, their warehouse manager of 20 years. The bank called again. They're asking about the payment. Phoenix's smile didn't reach her eyes. Tell them it'll be processed by Friday, Manuel. We're just waiting on the Harrington account to clear. She didn't mention that the Harrington account wouldn't cover even half of what they owed. Didn't mention that her father's medical bills had consumed their emergency reserves. Didn't mention that she had skipped her own salary for 3 months running. Your father raised you to be strong, but not to carry everything alone, Manuel said gently, seeing through her facade. He would want you to ask for help. Dad built this company by refusing to give up when everyone said he should, Phoenix replied, squeezing the older man's shoulder. I won't be the one to let it slip away. Later that evening, Phoenix sat beside her father's hospital bed, his once powerful frame now diminished against the white sheets. The stroke had left Samuel Dupree's right side paralyzed, his speech slurred but his mind mercifully intact. The Williams order shipped today, she told him, her voice bright with forced optimism. And we've got that new supplier in Marrakesh lined up for next month. Her father's eyes, so like her own, saw past the cheerful report. He struggled to lift his good hand, placing it over hers. Tell me, truth, he managed. Phoenix swallowed hard, the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. We're handling it, Dad. I'm handling it. Before he could press further, her phone buzzed with an email notification. Phoenix glanced down, her blood running cold at the sender, Ramsey Industries. The message was brief, clinical. Dupree Imports has been identified as a potential acquisition target. A meeting has been scheduled for tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Ramsey Industries headquarters to discuss terms. Not an invitation. A summons. Everyone in the import business knew Fletcher Ramsey's reputation. The Ice King had built his fortune by identifying struggling family businesses with valuable assets or connections, acquiring them at rock-bottom prices, then stripping them for parts and connections before discarding the empty shells. He was brilliant, methodical, and utterly without sentiment. Bad news? Her father asked, reading her expression. Phoenix quickly composed her features. Nothing I can't handle. That night in her small apartment above the company offices, Phoenix researched her adversary. Fletcher Ramsey stared back at her from magazine covers and newspaper articles, always impeccably dressed, expression controlled, not a single photograph capturing him with anything resembling a smile. 36 years old, never married, no serious relationships reported. Graduated top of his class at Wharton before taking his father's modest investment firm and transforming it into a billion-dollar empire. A man who had everything, yet from the coldness in his eyes, seemed to feel nothing. The Ramsey Industries building towered over Manhattan like a spear of ice, all gleaming glass and steel reaching toward the sky. Phoenix straightened her blazer as she entered the lobby, grateful she'd splurged on the tailored suit years ago. She wouldn't give Fletcher Ramsey the satisfaction of seeing her intimidated. The elevator whisked her to the top floor where a sleek receptionist with a practiced smile led her to the conference room. Mr. Ramsey will be with you shortly. The room offered a panoramic view of the city. Phoenix resisted the urge to be impressed, focusing instead on the documents in her slim portfolio, proof of Dupree Imports' value beyond what showed on their struggling balance sheets. Their supplier relationships in regions where even Ramsey's influence couldn't easily penetrate. Their reputation for ethical sourcing when many competitors cut corners. The door opened and conversation immediately ceased as Fletcher Ramsey entered, flanked by 3 executives. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. Ms. Dupree, he said, his voice as cool and precise as his appearance. I appreciate your promptness. Up close, Fletcher Ramsey was even more striking than in photographs. Tall, with broad shoulders accentuated by his perfectly tailored suit. Strong jawline, dark hair with just a touch of silver at the temples. But it was his eyes that commanded attention, pale blue, almost translucent, assessing everything with calculating precision. I didn't realize I had a choice in attending, Phoenix replied, meeting his gaze directly. Something flickered across his expression, surprise, perhaps, at her directness, before disappearing behind his professional mask. Choices are luxuries, Ms. Dupree. Your company has few left. He motioned for an assistant to distribute folders. These are our initial terms. As you'll see, we're being generous given your financial situation. Phoenix opened the folder, her stomach dropping at the insultingly low figure. This doesn't even cover our inventory costs. It covers your debts, Fletcher replied smoothly. Which, according to our research, is your most pressing concern? The meeting proceeded like a carefully choreographed dance, Fletcher leading with ruthless efficiency while Phoenix parried each thrust with passionate defense of her company's worth. His executives watched with thinly veiled amusement, until Phoenix began systematically highlighting the gaps in their research, the connections they'd overlooked, the true value hidden beneath the surface numbers. Gradually, the smirks faded. Fletcher's questions became more pointed, his attention more focused solely on her. By the meeting's end, something had shifted in his approach. "You've given us some things to reconsider," he conceded, the first hint that her arguments had made any impact. "We'll revise our proposal." As the executives filed out, Fletcher remained seated, studying Phoenix with new interest. Once they were alone, he leaned forward. "You're very committed to a failing enterprise, Ms. Dupree." "It's not failing," she countered. "It's weathering a storm." "There's a difference." "A storm caused by your father's medical bills and outdated business practices," he said bluntly. "Sentiment is clouding your judgment." "And lack of sentiment is clouding yours," she shot back. "You see numbers on a balance sheet. I see 3 generations of relationships with suppliers who trust us, customers who rely on us, employees who are family." Their eyes locked again, that same unexpected current passing between them. This time, Phoenix was certain she wasn't imagining it, a flicker of something almost like respect in the ice-blue depths. "Perhaps," Fletcher said after a moment, "there's another approach that would benefit us both." Phoenix raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "A merger rather than an acquisition," he said, watching her reaction carefully. "But of a more personal nature." "Personal?" Phoenix repeated, confused. "Marriage," Fletcher stated, as casually as if proposing a standard business transaction. "A union between our companies and ourselves." Phoenix stared at him, certain she had misheard. "You can't be serious." "I'm rarely anything but serious, Ms. Dupree." He stood, buttoning his jacket with practiced precision. "Your company has valuable import connections my business needs. My resources would eliminate your debt concerns. A marriage creates favorable tax advantages for both parties and presents a compelling narrative to the press." "A narrative," Phoenix echoed, finding her voice. "You're talking about our lives, Mr. Ramsey." "I'm talking about a business arrangement with mutually beneficial terms," he corrected. 1 year minimum, with an option to dissolve the union once both companies have stabilized under the merger. The audacity of his proposal left her speechless. Yet even as indignation rose within her, a treacherous voice in the back of her mind whispered that this could solve everything: her father's medical bills, the company's debts, the employees' jobs secured. "This is absurd," she finally managed. "It's practical," he countered. "Consider it alongside our revised acquisition offer. I'll expect your answer by the end of the week." With that, he left her alone in the conference room, the impossible choice hanging in the air between them. That evening, Phoenix sat at her father's bedside, the weight of Ramsey's proposal heavy on her shoulders. "Something wrong," her father observed, his speech still slurred but his perception sharp as ever. Phoenix hesitated, then shared a sanitized version of Ramsey's merger proposal, omitting the marriage aspect. Even this partial truth caused her father's brow to furrow with concern. "Don't sacrifice for me," he struggled to say. "It's not just for you, Dad," she replied, squeezing his hand. "It's for everyone who depends on Dupree Imports. Manuel's kids are in college. Carla just bought her first house. We employ 15 families." Later, in the small hospital cafeteria, Phoenix's best friend Lucia Santos stirred her coffee with fierce disapproval. "So this ice-cold billionaire walks into your life, threatens to dismantle your company, then proposes marriage as if he's offering to buy a used car?" Lucia's dark eyes flashed. "Tell me you're not actually considering this." Phoenix pushed her salad around her plate. What choice do I have, Lou? The bank's deadline is next month. Dad's treatment isn't covered by insurance. The revised acquisition offer is better but still strips away everything that makes Dupree Imports what it is. There are always choices, Lucia insisted. What about that small business grant you applied for? Won't come through in time if it comes through at all. A different loan? No bank will touch us with our current debt ratio. Phoenix set down her fork. 1 year, Lou. That's all it would be. A business arrangement with an exit clause. Lucia reached across the table, taking Phoenix's hand. But it's not just business, is it? Marriage is intimate. Personal. You'd be sharing your life with this man. On paper only, Phoenix insisted, ignoring the memory of those penetrating blue eyes, the unexpected current that had passed between them. There would be clear boundaries. Boundaries have a way of blurring, Phoenix, Lucia warned, her voice softening. Especially when you're living with someone, pretending to the world that you're in love. The line between fiction and reality gets thinner every day you walk it. Phoenix wanted to dismiss her friend's concerns, but something in Lucia's eyes stopped her. You sound like you're speaking from experience. Lucia looked away. Just be careful. Men like Fletcher Ramsey don't know how to love. They only know how to possess. Have you ever found yourself attracted to someone you absolutely should despise? Share your experience in the comments. Were you able to keep your heart protected? Chapter 2. By week's end, Phoenix stood in Fletcher's expansive office, the city sprawled below them like a glittering carpet. She had reviewed both options until the numbers blurred before her eyes. The acquisition would provide immediate cash but dismantle everything her family had built. The merger, the marriage, would preserve the company's identity while solving their financial crisis. I accept your proposal, she said without preamble. The merger, with conditions. Fletcher looked up from his desk, a flicker of surprise crossing his features before his composure returned. I'm listening. 1 year minimum, as you suggested, with the option to extend if the arrangement proves beneficial to both parties, Phoenix stated, her voice steady despite her racing heart. All employees retained. My father's medical expenses covered. And I maintain operational control of Dupree Imports, though I'll consult you on major decisions. Fletcher stood, moving around his desk with measured steps until he stood before her, close enough that she could detect the subtle scent of his cologne, something woodsy and expensive. Your conditions are acceptable, he said, studying her face. Though I'll add one of my own. For this to be convincing, we'll need to maintain appropriate appearances. Shared residence. Joint social engagements. A convincing public narrative. Phoenix swallowed hard. Separate bedrooms. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. Of course. This is business, not pleasure. Yet even as he spoke, his gaze dropped briefly to her lips, a gesture so quick Phoenix might have imagined it, except for the sudden tightening in her chest, the unmistakable awareness of him as a man rather than merely an adversary. We should announce our engagement immediately, Fletcher continued, all business again. My PR team will craft the story. Whirlwind romance, joining of family traditions, etc. The markets respond well to stability and sentiment. Sentiment? Phoenix couldn't help the irony in her tone. I thought that was a liability in business. It is, Fletcher agreed. But it sells well to the public. The engagement announcement sent shockwaves through Manhattan's business community. Financial analysts scrambled to interpret the unexpected merger. Society columnists speculated about the unlikely romance between the notorious Ice King and the passionate defender of her family's legacy. The following weeks became a whirlwind of orchestrated appearances. Charity galas where Fletcher's hand rested possessively at the small of Phoenix's back. Business dinners where they presented a united front. carefully staged photographs that captured what appeared to be tender moments between the newly engaged couple. Phoenix found herself in an exhausting performance, constantly aware of Fletcher's proximity, the casual touches that meant nothing to him but sent unwelcome shivers across her skin. More disconcerting were the moments she caught him watching her when he thought her attention elsewhere, a curious intensity in his gaze that didn't fit their businesslike arrangement. 3 weeks after their engagement announcement, Phoenix found herself seated across from Fletcher's mother at an exclusive restaurant. Regina Ramsey was a formidable woman in her 60s, elegance and judgment radiating from her in equal measure as her gaze coolly assessed Phoenix. "I must say, you're not what I expected for Fletcher," Regina remarked, sipping her martini. "His previous companions have been more aligned with our family's social circle." Phoenix understood the implied meaning behind her carefully chosen words. "I imagine most of them didn't have import businesses needed for Ramsey Industries' expansion plans." Regina's smile tightened. "Indeed. Though I wonder if you fully understand what you're getting into, my dear. Fletcher isn't built for genuine partnership. His father taught him that business comes before everything, especially messy emotions." "Then we're perfectly matched," Phoenix replied evenly. "This arrangement has very clear parameters." "Does it?" Regina asked, arching a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Because Fletcher has never brought a business associate to meet me. Not once in 15 years. Before Phoenix could respond, Fletcher returned to the table, immediately sensing the tension. His hand came to rest protectively on Phoenix's shoulder, a gesture that felt startlingly genuine. "I see you've been getting acquainted," he observed, his tone revealing nothing. "Your mother was just explaining what the Ramsey men are capable of," Phoenix said smoothly. "And what they're not." Fletcher's gaze sharpened, moving between the two women. "Perhaps we should order dessert elsewhere." "Don't leave on my account," Regina said, signaling for the check. "I've said what needed saying." After she departed, an uncomfortable silence settled between them. Fletcher ordered scotch, neat, and drank half of it before speaking. "Whatever she said." "It doesn't matter," Phoenix interrupted. "This isn't real, remember? She can't hurt my feelings about a relationship that doesn't exist." Something flickered in Fletcher's eyes, frustration, perhaps, or something deeper. "My mother has perfected the art of emotional warfare. Don't underestimate the damage she can inflict." "You sound like you're speaking from experience," Phoenix observed. Fletcher finished his scotch, his expression closing like a vault. "We should go. We have that engagement photo shoot tomorrow." The photo shoot took place in Central Park, carefully orchestrated to capture the romantic story of Manhattan's most talked-about couple. The photographer positioned them beneath flowering cherry trees, Phoenix's burgundy dress providing striking contrast against Fletcher's charcoal suit. "Closer together," the photographer instructed. "Mr. Ramsey, put your arm around her waist." Ms. Dupree turned slightly toward him. "Yes, like that." Phoenix became acutely aware of Fletcher's body heat as he drew her against him, his hand firm at her waist. For the camera's benefit, she gazed up at him as one besotted, surprised to find him already looking down at her with an intensity that seemed to transcend their performance. "Perfect," the photographer called. "Now for the kiss." Phoenix tensed. They hadn't discussed this aspect of their charade, hadn't prepared boundaries for such intimate contact. Fletcher must have felt her hesitation. He leaned down, his lips close to her ear. "We don't have to," he murmured, low enough that only she could hear. The unexpected consideration caught her off guard, revealing a crack in his ruthless facade. Their eyes met, a wordless question passing between them. Phoenix made a split-second decision, rising slightly on her toes and pressing her lips to his. She had intended a brief, perfunctory kiss for the camera, nothing more than another business transaction. What she hadn't anticipated was her body's immediate response to the contact. Warmth bloomed from her lips, spreading through her chest as Fletcher's initial surprise gave way to response. His arm tightened around her waist, drawing her closer as the kiss deepened for one breathless moment. The photographer's enthusiastic exclamations broke the spell. Phoenix pulled back, unsettled by the flash of genuine desire she'd glimpsed in Fletcher's eyes, and more disturbed by her own response. "That'll make the society pages," the photographer grinned, reviewing the shots. Later that evening, Phoenix retreated to her room in Fletcher's penthouse, her room now, according to their arrangement. She had moved in 3 days earlier, her modest wardrobe looking out of place among the opulent furnishings he had arranged for her. The space was beautiful but impersonal, like an elegant hotel suite rather than a home. A knock at her door pulled her from her thoughts. She opened it to find Fletcher holding 2 contracts. "The merger paperwork came through," he said, offering her one of the folders. "I thought you'd want to review it immediately." "Thank you," she replied, accepting the document. Their fingers brushed in the exchange, a momentary contact that shouldn't have registered yet somehow did. Fletcher didn't immediately withdraw. "About today," he began, uncharacteristic uncertainty in his voice. "The photo shoot was convincing," Phoenix finished for him. "Which was the point? The more believable our relationship appears, the more stable the market response to our merger." Fletcher studied her face, as if searching for something behind her words. "Of course," he finally said. "Business first." As he turned to leave, Phoenix couldn't help asking, "Is it always business first with you? Is there nothing you value beyond the bottom line?" Fletcher paused, his back to her. For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. "Valuing things makes you vulnerable," he said at last, his voice low. "Vulnerability is inefficient." "Efficient isn't the same as fulfilling," Phoenix countered. Fletcher turned to face her, something raw in his expression. "Fulfillment is a luxury most people can't afford, Phoenix. Some of us learn that earlier than others." Before she could respond, he bid her good night and disappeared down the hallway, leaving Phoenix troubled by the glimpse of genuine pain beneath his controlled facade. The following weeks established a rhythm to their arrangement. Days filled with business meetings where they presented a united front, evenings of required social appearances where they performed their roles as the besotted couple. At the penthouse, they moved around each other with careful politeness, maintaining professional distance despite their increasingly public displays of affection for the benefit of others. Phoenix found herself watching Fletcher when his attention was elsewhere, the rare moments when his guard lowered, revealing glimpses of the man beneath the calculating businessman. The way his expression softened when speaking with her father during their hospital visits. His unexpected patience explaining complex financial strategies when she asked questions about Ramsey Industries. The slight smile that occasionally appeared when she challenged his assumptions in business discussions. These moments unsettled her more than his coldness ever had. It was easier to maintain emotional distance from the ruthless Ice King than from the complex man she was beginning to discover beneath the frozen exterior. One evening, Phoenix returned to the penthouse after visiting her father to find Fletcher in the kitchen, a rare occurrence, as he typically worked late or dined out with business associates. "You cook?" she asked, surprised to find him stirring something that smelled tantalizingly of herbs and wine. "Occasionally," he replied, not looking up from the pan. "When the alternative is another restaurant dinner discussing profit margins and market projections." Phoenix set down her bag, oddly touched by this unexpected domesticity. "Can I help?" Fletcher glanced up, seeming almost surprised by the offer. "You could open the wine." Red, in the decanter. They worked in companionable silence, Fletcher focused on the risotto while Phoenix set the table. The normalcy of the scene struck her as surreal. Playing house with a man she had married for entirely strategic reasons. Over dinner, conversation drifted away from business for once, turning instead to travel experiences connected to their respective work. Phoenix described the small villages in Morocco where Dupree Import sourced their textiles, the families who had worked with her father for decades. "You should come next time," she said without thinking. "See the operation firsthand." The traditional techniques are fascinating. I'd like that, Fletcher replied, his expression more open than she had ever seen it. Though I doubt I'd be welcomed warmly as the corporate raider who nearly dismantled their American partner. You'd be welcomed as my husband, Phoenix said, then immediately felt heat rise to her cheeks at how genuine the words sounded. Fletcher's gaze held hers across the table, the air between them suddenly charged with unacknowledged possibilities. And is that what I am? Your husband? Or merely a convenient business solution? The question hung between them, weighted with implications neither was prepared to address. Phoenix's phone chimed with a text message, breaking the moment. She checked it, relief and concern washing over her simultaneously. It's the hospital. Dad's had a small setback. Nothing serious, but I should go. Fletcher was already standing. I'll drive you. You don't have to. I know, he cut her off, his tone leaving no room for argument. I want to. At the hospital, Phoenix was surprised when Fletcher didn't merely drop her off but accompanied her inside, his steady presence beside her as the doctor explained Samuel Dupree's minor complications. While Phoenix spoke with the medical team, Fletcher stepped away to make a phone call. Later, as they sat in Samuel's darkened room, Phoenix watching the reassuring rise and fall of her father's chest as he slept, Fletcher touched her arm gently. I've arranged for a specialist to consult on your father's case, he said quietly. Dr. Levinson from Johns Hopkins. He'll be here tomorrow morning. Phoenix stared at him, caught off guard by this unexpected kindness. Fletcher, those specialists cost. It's handled, he interrupted, his tone matter-of-fact but his eyes revealing something more complex. Your father's recovery is important to you. Therefore, it's important to the success of our arrangement. Phoenix wanted to challenge his framing of the gesture as merely strategic, but something in his expression stopped her, a vulnerability he seemed unwilling to acknowledge even to himself. Thank you, she said simply, covering his hand with hers. Fletcher's gaze dropped to their joined hands, something shifting in his expression, surprise followed by an emotion Phoenix couldn't quite identify. Before either could speak, a nurse entered to check Samuel's vitals, the moment passing like a shadow across the sun. The following week brought their first major test as business partners. Gregory Thornhill, a longtime competitor of both Dupree Imports and Ramsey Industries, launched an aggressive campaign to undermine their newly merged operations, spreading rumors about financial instability and targeting their key clients with predatory offers. Phoenix arrived at Fletcher's office, waving off his assistant's protests as she stormed in. Have you seen what Thornhill is doing? He's contacted every one of our major accounts with pricing that's below our cost. Fletcher looked up from his computer, unruffled by her entrance. I'm aware. His desperation is showing. Desperation? He's systematically attacking our business. Phoenix paced before his desk. We need to respond immediately. With what? Equally unsustainable pricing that erodes our margins? Fletcher asked, his tone maddeningly calm. That's exactly what he wants. Phoenix planted her hands on his desk, leaning forward. So we do nothing while he steals our clients? Fletcher stood, closing the distance between them. I didn't say that. But reactive decisions driven by emotion are rarely strategic. This isn't about emotion, Phoenix insisted. It's about protecting what we've built. Is it? Fletcher challenged, his voice softening. Because your flushed cheeks and elevated breathing suggest otherwise. Phoenix became suddenly aware of their proximity, of Fletcher's steady gaze focused intently on her face. You think I'm being irrational. I think you're being passionate, he corrected. Which isn't inherently negative. But passion needs direction to be effective. Their eyes locked, that now familiar current passing between them, no longer entirely unwelcome but increasingly dangerous to their carefully constructed boundaries. Then help me direct it, Phoenix said, her voice lower than intended. You know Thornhill's playbook better than I do. Something flickered in Fletcher's eyes. Appreciation, perhaps, for her willingness to acknowledge his expertise. He moved to the sitting area of his office, gesturing for her to join him. Thornhill's strategy is predictable, he explained as they sat side by side on the leather sofa. He'll target our most visible clients first, creating an impression of mass exodus. Then he'll approach our suppliers, offering better terms that he can't possibly maintain long-term. So how do we counter? Phoenix asked, acutely aware of how their knees almost touched. We don't defend. We attack, Fletcher replied, a hint of his ruthless business acumen surfacing. Thornhill's European division is overextended. 2 of his major lenders are clients of my investment division. And his COO has been sending out resumes for months. Phoenix stared at him. How do you know all this? A ghost of a smile touched Fletcher's lips. I make it my business to know my competitors' weaknesses. And what about partners? Phoenix asked before she could stop herself. Do you study their weaknesses too? The question hung between them, layered with meaning beyond the professional context. Fletcher's gaze intensified, searching her face. Partners, he said carefully, require a different approach. Later that evening, after a strategy session that had stretched into dinner at Fletcher's office, they returned to the penthouse. The emotional and intellectual intensity of the day had created a strange intimacy between them, a shared purpose in facing Thornhill's threat that blurred the lines of their arrangement. As Phoenix moved to her room, Fletcher called her name. She turned to find him holding an old leather-bound journal. I found this while researching Thornhill, he said, offering it to her. It's a record of trading routes from the 1920s, including some your grandfather might have used when establishing Dupree Imports. I thought you might want it for your company archives. Phoenix accepted the journal, stunned by the thoughtfulness of the gesture. You researched my grandfather? Know your partners, Fletcher said simply, though something in his expression suggested there was nothing simple about his interest. Thank you, Phoenix replied, genuinely touched. This is unexpected. Good unexpected or bad unexpected? Fletcher asked, a rare hint of uncertainty in his voice. Phoenix studied him, this enigmatic man she had married for entirely practical reasons, who continued to surprise her with glimpses of depth beneath his calculated exterior. Good, she finally said. Definitely good. Something shifted in Fletcher's expression, a warmth appearing in those usually cool blue eyes. He stepped closer, close enough that Phoenix could detect that subtle cologne that had become oddly familiar over their weeks together. Phoenix, he began, his voice lower than usual. The shrill ring of his phone cut through the moment. Fletcher checked the display, his expression immediately shifting to business mode. It's the Tokyo office. I need to take this. Phoenix nodded, retreating to her room with the journal clutched to her chest, troubled by her disappointment at the interrupted moment, and what that disappointment might mean for the boundaries she was determined to maintain. We all have moments where trust feels impossible after betrayal. Have you ever had to decide between protecting yourself or taking a risk on someone? Share your experience below, and don't forget to subscribe if you. Chapter 3. Fletcher took a seat across from her, more relaxed than she'd ever seen him, his suit exchanged for dark jeans and a cashmere sweater that softened his usually imposing presence. This was my grandmother's property, he said unexpectedly. The only place where I have good childhood memories. The personal revelation surprised Phoenix. Fletcher rarely volunteered information about his past. You were close to her? She was the only one who saw me as more than a Ramsay heir, he replied, his gaze drifting to the view outside. Here, I wasn't required to be perfect, strategic, or emotionless. I could just be a boy who liked to fish and build forts in the woods. Phoenix studied him in this new light, a glimpse of the child he had been before becoming the Ice King. What happened to her? She asked gently. She died when I was 12, Fletcher said, a shadow crossing his features. My father insisted I attend the board meeting scheduled that day anyway. The market doesn't care about personal tragedies, he told me. Neither should you. Phoenix felt a surge of anger toward the man who had taught his son such a brutal lesson. That's horrible. Fletcher shrugged, though the casual gesture couldn't disguise the old pain. It was an effective business lesson. I've never let personal matters interfere with strategy since. Until now, Phoenix said softly. This marriage, it's personal and business intertwined. Fletcher's eyes met hers, something unreadable in their blue depths. Perhaps that's why it feels so complicated. The word hung between them, acknowledging the shifting terrain of their relationship. Before Phoenix could respond, the lights flickered once, twice, then plunged the house into darkness. Power outage, Fletcher said calmly. The generator should kick in momentarily. When it didn't, Fletcher used his phone's flashlight to navigate to a cabinet, retrieving candles and matches. Soon, the great room was bathed in a warm, golden glow that cast dramatic shadows across their faces. The storm must have taken down a line, Fletcher explained, checking his phone. No cell service either. We're properly cut off. Phoenix moved to the window, watching lightning illuminate the now ominous mountains. Will the roads be passable tomorrow? Unlikely until the crews clear them, Fletcher replied, adding wood to the fireplace. We could be here a couple of days. Trapped in an isolated house with Fletcher, no distractions, no business calls, no pretense of performing for others. The prospect was both unsettling and oddly thrilling. As the evening progressed, they settled before the fireplace with more wine and the simple dinner Fletcher prepared on the gas stove. The dancing flames cast a magical quality over the scene, softening edges, creating intimacy whether they sought it or not. Tell me something real, Phoenix said suddenly, surprising herself with the request. Something not related to business or our arrangement. Fletcher studied her across the rim of his wineglass. What would you like to know? Anything. Something that matters to you. Fletcher was quiet so long Phoenix thought he might refuse. Then, I wanted to be an architect when I was young. I used to sketch buildings, bridges, structures that would outlast their creators. Phoenix tilted her head, trying to imagine this different version of the man before her. What happened? My father happened, Fletcher replied, no bitterness in his tone, just resignation. Ramsey men run Ramsey Industries. It wasn't a choice so much as a predetermined path. Do you regret it? Phoenix asked. Fletcher's gaze met hers directly. I did. Until recently. The implication hung in the air between them, neither willing to acknowledge it directly. Phoenix changed the subject. Is that why this house is different from your other properties? A nod to the architect you might have been? Perhaps, Fletcher conceded. Or simply that here, I don't have to be the person everyone expects. And who is that? Phoenix asked softly. You know who I am, Fletcher replied, his voice equally quiet. The Ice King. Ruthless. Calculating. Incapable of sentiment. I thought I knew, Phoenix admitted. I'm less certain now. Their eyes held across the space between them, firelight reflecting in both their gazes. Fletcher set down his wine and moved to sit beside her on the sofa, close enough that she could feel the heat of his body. What do you see now? He asked, his voice low, almost vulnerable. Phoenix turned toward him, studying the strong lines of his face softened in the golden light. Someone more complex than his reputation. Someone who's been hurt and learned to protect himself too well. Fletcher's gaze dropped to her lips, then back to her eyes. Phoenix, he said, her name almost a question. She wasn't sure who moved first. Perhaps they both did, drawn together like magnets finally released from restraint. His lips met hers, tentative at first, so unlike the performative kiss they had shared for the cameras. This was real, private, a question being asked and answered between them. Phoenix's hand moved to his chest, feeling his heartbeat quicken beneath her palm as the kiss deepened. Fletcher's fingers threaded through her hair, cradling her head with unexpected tenderness as they explored this new, dangerous territory. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, reality came crashing back. Phoenix pulled away, standing abruptly. "This is a mistake," she said, though her body hummed with disagreement. "We had an arrangement with clear terms." Fletcher remained seated, his expression more open than she had ever seen it. "Terms can be renegotiated." "To what end?" Phoenix challenged. "This is temporary, remember? 1 year, maybe less if things stabilize sooner." "And if I no longer want temporary?" Fletcher asked, rising to stand before her. The question landed like a thunderclap between them. Phoenix stared at him, searching for the calculation, the strategy behind his words, and finding instead a raw vulnerability that frightened her more than his coldness ever had. "You don't mean that," she said, backing away. "This is proximity and circumstance. Nothing more. Is that what you need to believe?" Fletcher asked, making no move to follow her retreat. Phoenix wrapped her arms around herself. "I need to remember why we're doing this. The companies. My father. Your expansion plans. Those are the reasons that matter." "Are they the only reasons that matter?" Fletcher pressed gently. Phoenix couldn't answer that, not honestly, not without admitting the growing confusion in her heart. "I should get some sleep," she said instead. "Good night, Fletcher." Later, lying awake in the guest bedroom, Phoenix replayed the kiss in her mind. It wasn't the physical attraction that troubled her, that had been present from their first meeting. It was the tender way he had held her, as if she were precious rather than convenient. The vulnerability in his eyes when he'd asked if she wanted more than temporary. Could the notorious Ice King actually be melting? And more disturbing, did she want him to, knowing the inevitable end date of their arrangement? Morning brought sunshine streaming through the windows and the sound of workers clearing the road. Phoenix found Fletcher in the kitchen, 2 cups of coffee prepared, a careful distance in his manner that hadn't been there before. "Power's back," he said, offering her a mug. "Road should be passable by noon." "That's good news," Phoenix replied, accepting the coffee without meeting his eyes. "About last night," Fletcher began. "We don't need to discuss it," Phoenix interrupted. "It was a moment of weakness. It won't happen again." Something flickered across Fletcher's face. Disappointment, perhaps, before his business mask slipped into place. "Of course. Our arrangement remains as agreed." The drive back to the city was quiet, both retreating to their phones to catch up on missed communications. By the time they reached Manhattan, the professional facade was firmly back in place, the personal connection of the previous night buried beneath strategic discussions about their next move against Thornhill. The following week, Phoenix threw herself into work, grateful for the distraction from her confused feelings. Fletcher seemed equally determined to maintain professional distance, their interactions cordial but carefully bounded. Yet something had shifted, a current of awareness that couldn't be undone. Phoenix found herself noticing details she had tried to ignore before. The occasional softening around Fletcher's eyes when he looked at her, the protective way he positioned himself between her and crowds at public events, the thoughtful gestures that had nothing to do with their business arrangement. These observations became harder to dismiss as purely strategic, especially when Gregory Thornhill escalated his attacks on their merged businesses, forcing them to spend long hours developing countermeasures. During one such strategy session in Fletcher's home office, surrounded by financial projections and market analyses, Phoenix found her attention drifting to Fletcher himself, the intensity of his focus, the elegant movement of his hands as he outlined his proposals, the rare glimpses of passion beneath his controlled exterior when discussing their shared vision. "You're staring," Fletcher observed without looking up from his tablet. Phoenix felt heat rise to her cheeks. "I was thinking." About? Now he did look up, those piercing blue eyes meeting hers directly. Why this matters so much to you, Phoenix replied honestly. Dupree Imports is a relatively small acquisition in your portfolio. You could have dozens of companies with our connections without the complication of this arrangement. Fletcher set down his tablet, giving her his full attention. Is that what you think? That there were simpler options I chose not to pursue? Weren't there? Phoenix challenged. Fletcher was quiet for a moment, seeming to weigh his words carefully. I reviewed 7 import companies with similar profiles to Dupree before approaching you. All would have been easier acquisitions. None had your company's reputation for ethical sourcing or supplier loyalty. Business considerations, Phoenix noted. Initially, Fletcher acknowledged. But then I met you. He paused, something vulnerable flickering in his expression. You challenged me in that first meeting. Not just my offer, but my entire approach. No one does that. Phoenix remembered that confrontation, the electricity that had passed between them even then. So this was, what? A challenge you couldn't resist? A partnership I found myself wanting, Fletcher corrected, his voice softer than usual. With someone who saw beyond the Ice King reputation. The admission hung in the air between them, more honest than either had been since that night at the mountain house. Before Phoenix could respond, Fletcher's phone chimed with an urgent alert. It's Thornhill, he said, scanning the message. He's leaked photos to the press. What photos? Phoenix asked, moving to look over his shoulder. Fletcher turned his tablet toward her, revealing intimate images of them kissing by the fireplace at the mountain retreat, clearly taken through the windows with a telephoto lens. How is this possible? Phoenix whispered, horror washing over her. We were completely isolated. Apparently not, Fletcher replied, his voice tight with controlled anger. Thornhill must have had someone watching the property, waiting for an opportunity. Phoenix stepped back, a terrible suspicion forming. Or someone tipped him off that we'd be there. Someone who knew exactly when and where to find us. Fletcher's expression darkened. What are you suggesting? This is awfully convenient timing, Phoenix said, the hurt in her voice unmistakable. Just as Thornhill's other tactics were failing, suddenly there are photos suggesting our marriage is more than a business arrangement. The public will love the romance, investors will respond positively to the stability. You think I orchestrated this, Fletcher stated flatly. Arranged for someone to invade our privacy and photograph us in a vulnerable moment, for market advantage. Did you? Phoenix demanded, hating the doubt that had crept into her heart but unable to silence it. Fletcher stood, his expression closing like a vault. After everything, you still believe I'm only capable of calculation. That even intimacy is just another business strategy. What am I supposed to believe? Phoenix challenged. You've spent years cultivating a reputation for ruthless efficiency. Why would I be the exception to your approach? The hurt that flashed across Fletcher's face was so genuine that Phoenix immediately regretted her words. But before she could retract them, his expression hardened into the cold mask she hadn't seen directed at her in months. Your opinion of me is clear, he said, his voice devoid of emotion. And perhaps justified by my past actions. I'll have my team issue a statement acknowledging the photos while emphasizing our commitment to privacy. He walked to the door, pausing without turning back. For the record, Phoenix, I didn't arrange this. But I understand why you would think so. With that, he left her alone in the office, the wall between them rebuilt in an instant, stronger than before because now it was fortified with genuine hurt rather than mere professional distance. That evening, Phoenix met Lucia for dinner, desperate for perspective from someone who knew her before her life had become entangled with Fletcher Ramsey. These photos, Phoenix explained, showing her friend the tabloid coverage on her phone. They're real, but the context is all wrong. We were stranded during a storm, emotions were running high. Lucia studied her with knowing eyes. And nothing, Phoenix insisted. It was a mistake. One kiss that shouldn't have happened. One kiss that's clearly tormenting you, Lucia observed. Phoenix, I've known you since college. You don't do casual physical involvement. If you kissed him, feelings were already involved. Phoenix stared into her wine glass, unable to deny her friend's assessment. It doesn't matter. I accused him of leaking the photos himself for business advantage. You should have seen his face, Lou. Like I'd slapped him. Was it a reasonable suspicion? Lucia asked gently. Based on his reputation? Yes, Phoenix admitted. Based on the man I've come to know these past months? No. And that's what scares me. I don't know if I'm seeing the real Fletcher or just what I want to see. Lucia reached across the table, squeezing Phoenix's hand. Maybe you're seeing what's always been there beneath the surface, a man who built walls so high he forgot how to lower them until someone came along worth the risk. Or maybe I'm being naive, Phoenix countered. Mixing business with emotion never ends well. You told me that yourself. Lucia's expression softened with remembered pain. I did, because Marco broke my heart when our business partnership fell apart. But Phoenix, not every man is Marco. And from what you've told me, Fletcher Ramsey isn't anything like him. What do you mean? Marco used charm to get what he wanted, Lucia explained. Fletcher seems to have done the opposite, keeping people at a distance with coldness while quietly doing things that matter. The specialist for your father. Protecting his employees during restructuring. Even this marriage, he could have simply acquired your company, but he found a solution that preserved your family's legacy. Put that way, Fletcher's actions painted a very different picture than his reputation suggested. Phoenix thought back to all the small kindnesses he had shown when no one was watching, gestures that offered no strategic advantage. Even if you're right, Phoenix said, we still have an expiration date. 1 year, less if the merger stabilizes sooner. Those were our terms. Terms can change, Lucia replied, echoing Fletcher's words from that night by the fireplace. If both parties want them to. The question Phoenix couldn't answer, wouldn't allow herself to answer, was whether she wanted them to. Late that night, Phoenix returned to the penthouse to find it dark and quiet. Fletcher's bedroom door was closed, no light visible beneath it. She moved to her own room, heart heavy with regret over her accusations and confusion about her feelings. On her bed lay a manila folder containing what appeared to be original acquisition documents. Puzzled, Phoenix opened it, finding a highlighted section that made her breath catch. It was an early analysis of potential import business targets, dated several months before Fletcher had approached Dupree Imports. The notation beside her company's name read, Optimal Acquisition Target Based on Supplier Relationships and Ethical Sourcing Standards. Owner demonstrated exceptional business acumen during Chicago Trade Show presentation. Further investigation warranted. Phoenix sat heavily on the bed, the document trembling in her hands. Fletcher had been watching her company, watching her, long before they met. Not as a convenient takeover target, but with genuine professional respect. Beneath the document was a handwritten note in Fletcher's precise script, you asked for something real. The truth is I admired you before I met you. The rest came after. I'm curious, royal family, have you ever misjudged someone, only to discover the truth was completely different? How did you make amends? Share your stories below, and remember to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Chapter 4. Phoenix stared at the document long into the night, tears blurring the words she'd already memorized. Fletcher had noticed her, truly seen her, before their worlds had collided. Not as a convenient pawn but as a businesswoman worthy of respect. Sleep eluded her, the revelation forcing her to reconsider every interaction, every assumption. By morning, dark circles shadowed her eyes, but clarity had replaced confusion. She needed to talk to Fletcher. To apologize. To understand. But his side of the bed remained untouched, his home office empty. A text arrived as she was preparing coffee. Emergency board meeting. Will be late. Professional. Distant. The wall between them now reinforced with the mortar of her mistrust. The day stretched endlessly as Phoenix tried to focus on work. The documents Fletcher had left her weighing heavily on her mind. By evening, the penthouse remained empty, Fletcher's continued absence speaking volumes. When her phone rang, Lucia's name flashing on the screen, Phoenix answered gratefully. I messed up, she admitted without preamble. That's why I'm calling, Lucia replied, her voice unusually serious. Turn on channel 8. Now. Phoenix fumbled for the remote, her heart pounding as the television flickered to life. Gregory Thornhill's smooth, predatory smile filled the screen, the ticker below identifying him as making shocking allegations about Ramsey Dupree merger. Documents proving that Fletcher Ramsey targeted Phoenix Dupree specifically, planning their so-called romance months before approaching her company, Thornhill was saying, his expression a practiced mask of concern. This calculated deception raises serious questions about the legitimacy of their business merger and, of course, their marriage. Phoenix sank onto the sofa, bile rising in her throat. Somehow, Thornhill had twisted the very document Fletcher had shown her, proof of his genuine respect, into something sordid and manipulative. I've had the pleasure of knowing Ms. Dupree professionally for several years, Thornhill continued smoothly. She's a woman of integrity who deserves better than to be used as a pawn in Ramsey's corporate chess game. The camera cut to the reporter. We reached out to both Fletcher Ramsey and Phoenix Dupree for comment. While Ms. Dupree has not responded, Mr. Ramsey issued a statement refusing to dignify false narratives with a response and stated that personal relationships are not subject to public audit. This leaves many wondering what exactly he's refusing to address. Phoenix shut off the television, her hands shaking. The story was perfectly calculated to drive a wedge between them, to create exactly the doubt she had allowed to take root. And she had played right into Thornhill's hands, accusing Fletcher of the very manipulation now being broadcast across the financial news. Her phone rang again, this time an unknown number. Mrs. Ramsey? The unfamiliar voice was smoothly professional. This is Elise Ward from the Times. We'd like your comment on Gregory Thornhill's allegations regarding your husband's. Phoenix ended the call, only for another to immediately take its place. Then another. Her phone became a relentless chorus of journalists seeking comment, each call increasing her panic. When the penthouse elevator chimed, Phoenix nearly collapsed with relief. Fletcher stepped out, his expression rigid with control, suit impeccable despite the lateness of the hour. You've seen it, he said, not a question. Fletcher, My PR team is handling it, he interrupted, loosening his tie with sharp, efficient movements. They've recommended we make a joint appearance tomorrow at the charity gala. Show a united front. Is that all you have to say? Phoenix asked, hurt by his business-like approach. Fletcher's gaze finally met hers, something raw and wounded visible for just a moment before disappearing behind his professional mask. What would you have me say, Phoenix? That Thornhill deliberately twisted information to suit his narrative? That he's using our personal relationship as leverage in a business play? His voice grew quieter. Or that the most painful part was knowing you believed it before he even suggested it? The truth of his words stung. I was wrong, Phoenix admitted. The documents you left me, I understand now why you approached my company specifically. It wasn't what I thought. No, Fletcher agreed, his voice weary. It wasn't. He moved past her toward his bedroom, shoulders straight despite the obvious weight upon them. Fletcher, Phoenix called after him. What do we do now? He paused, not turning around. We do what's necessary to protect both companies. We present a united front as planned. And us? She asked, the word barely audible. Fletcher's silence stretched between them like a chasm. I think we both need to remember that this is a business arrangement with clear terms, he finally said, echoing her own words back to her. 1 year, less if things stabilize sooner. The click of his bedroom door closing felt like a period at the end of a painful sentence. Chapter 5. The following evening, cameras flashed as Fletcher helped Phoenix from their limousine, his hand warm and steady at the small of her back despite the tension between them. Her emerald gown caught the light, making her skin glow against the deep green fabric. "You look beautiful," Fletcher murmured for the benefit of nearby photographers. Their public performance had begun. "Thank you," Phoenix replied, her smile perfect for the cameras. "You're not so bad yourself." His black tuxedo was immaculately tailored, emphasizing broad shoulders and lean strength. Several female photographers sighed audibly as they captured his image, causing Phoenix a surprising flare of possessiveness despite their strained relationship. They moved through the charity gala with practiced ease, the perfect power couple. Fletcher kept her close, his hand rarely leaving her waist, their smiles convincing enough that several guests commented on what a love match they appeared to be. "Ramsey. There you are." Gregory Thornhill's voice cut through the pleasant hum of conversation, causing both Phoenix and Fletcher to tense. "And the lovely Mrs. Ramsey, of course." Thornhill approached with predatory confidence, champagne flute in hand, his smile never reaching his cold eyes. "I was beginning to think you were avoiding me." "Gregory," Fletcher acknowledged coolly. "I wasn't aware you supported children's health care." "I support many causes," Thornhill replied. "Including truth in business practices." His gaze shifted to Phoenix. "My dear, you've been remarkably silent on recent revelations. One might almost think you were constrained from speaking freely." Phoenix felt Fletcher's hand tighten slightly at her waist. Before he could respond, she stepped forward, smiling with all the warmth of an Arctic winter. "Mr. Thornhill," she said pleasantly, "in my experience, those most concerned with the truth are often those most practiced at manipulation." She sipped her champagne delicately. "But perhaps that's just my observation from the Women's Business Alliance meetings where your approach to acquisition negotiations has been rather thoroughly discussed." Thornhill's smile faltered slightly. "I'm sure I don't know what you mean." "No?" Phoenix tilted her head. "How interesting. I could have sworn Regina Martinez mentioned something about threatened litigation that mysteriously disappeared when she agreed to dinner with you." She waved her hand dismissively. "But perhaps I misunderstood." Color drained from Thornhill's face before he recovered his composure. "You should be careful about repeating unsubstantiated gossip, Mrs. Ramsey. It could be unhealthy for your business interests." Fletcher stepped forward, his expression dangerous. "Is that a threat, Gregory?" "Merely friendly advice," Thornhill replied, backing away slightly. "Do enjoy your evening. While you can." As he disappeared into the crowd, Phoenix realized her hands were trembling. Fletcher guided her smoothly to a quiet alcove away from curious eyes. "That was impressive," he said quietly. "And dangerous." "He needed to know I'm not some helpless pawn," Phoenix replied, still bristling. "In his game or anyone else's." Fletcher studied her with newfound appreciation. Regina Martinez really discussed Thornhill's tactics at the Alliance meeting? Along with 3 other women who'd had similar experiences, Phoenix confirmed. "Thornhill has a pattern of targeting women-owned businesses and using personal leverage to gain business advantage. Just like he's trying to do with us," Fletcher observed. Phoenix nodded. "Except I'm not actually being coerced, despite what he wants people to believe." Their eyes met, the first moment of genuine connection since their argument. Something shifted in Fletcher's expression. "Phoenix," he began, just as the gala chairman approached. "Mr. Ramsey. We're ready for your pledge announcement." The moment broken, Fletcher nodded. "Of course." The chairman beamed at Phoenix. "We're so grateful for your husband's generosity. The children's cancer ward renovation wouldn't be possible without the Ramsey Foundation's matching donation." Phoenix blinked in surprise. "I didn't realize." "Fletcher doesn't publicize his philanthropy," the chairman explained. "But the foundation has funded our pediatric research for years." As they moved toward the stage, Phoenix absorbed this new information. Fletcher Ramsey, the notorious Ice King, quietly funding children's cancer research without publicity or recognition. Another layer of the man she thought she knew, yet clearly didn't fully understand. After the speeches and donation pledges, they circulated separately, Phoenix deep in thought as she accepted congratulations on their joint pledge. When she spotted Fletcher on the terrace alone, she followed, drawn by the need to understand this complex man she had married. The night air carried the scent of rain, the garden below the terrace glistening with moisture from an earlier shower. Fletcher stood at the stone balustrade, Manhattan's lights twinkling beyond. "I didn't know about the children's hospital," Phoenix said softly, coming to stand beside him. Fletcher didn't turn. "It wasn't relevant to our arrangement." "It's relevant to who you are," Phoenix countered. "Which seems increasingly different from who I thought you were." "Does it matter?" Fletcher asked, his voice carefully neutral. "Our terms remain the same." The rain began again, light droplets that neither acknowledged as they stood beneath the partial shelter of the terrace overhang. "I'm sorry," Phoenix said finally. "For assuming the worst. For not seeing what was in front of me." Fletcher turned to her then, raindrops caught in his dark hair, his expression unguarded for once. "What do you see now, Phoenix?" "Someone who approaches business strategically but acts from principles he doesn't advertise," she replied honestly. "Someone who values loyalty and protects what matters to him. Someone who—" She hesitated, gathering courage. "Someone who might feel something genuine for me, despite our arrangement." Fletcher moved closer, the rain increasing around them but neither making any move toward shelter. "And what do you feel?" he asked, his voice barely audible above the rainfall. Phoenix met his gaze directly. "Terrified," she admitted. "I built walls after Marco to protect my heart. This arrangement with you was supposed to be safe because it had clear boundaries. And now?" Fletcher prompted, close enough now that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. "Now those boundaries are blurring," Phoenix whispered. "And I don't know if I can trust what I'm feeling, or what you're feeling." Rain streamed steadily now, soaking through their formal wear, yet neither moved. "Ask me," Fletcher said simply. "Ask you what?" "What I feel," he clarified. "Not what serves our business interests. Not what perpetuates our public image. Ask me what I feel, Phoenix." Her heart hammering, Phoenix formed the question she had been afraid to voice. "What do you feel for me, Fletcher?" In answer, he slowly knelt before her on the rain-soaked terrace, heedless of his expensive tuxedo pants or the water pooling around them. The gesture, the mighty Fletcher Ramsey on his knees, stole her breath. "I feel that my life before you was a calculation," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Numbers and strategy and control. You brought chaos and challenge and life." He took her hands in his. "I know our arrangement had terms. I know you have every reason not to trust a man with my reputation. But I'm asking you to consider new terms." "What terms?" Phoenix asked, her voice trembling. "Real ones," Fletcher replied simply. "A real marriage. A real partnership. Not for appearances or business advantage or limited duration." Tears mixed with raindrops on Phoenix's cheeks. "People will say I've been manipulated. That this was your plan all along." "Let them," Fletcher said with surprising fierceness. "We know the truth. I approached your company with business intentions. I approached you with respect. Everything else." He shook his head, rain scattering from his hair. Everything else was unexpected. Unwanted, even, at first. But now the only thing I want is you. Not your company. Not your business connections. You. Phoenix stared down at this powerful man kneeling before her, vulnerability naked in his eyes. The Ice King was gone, melted away in the rain to reveal the man beneath, a man capable of passion and tenderness she had only glimpsed before. I'm still afraid, she confessed. So am I, Fletcher admitted. Control has been my protection for years. Loving you means accepting I can't control everything, especially not how you feel about me. The word loving hung between them, neither addressing it directly but both feeling its weight. I need time, Phoenix said finally. To be sure this is real for both of us. Not reaction to crisis or manipulation by Thornhill or. Fletcher rose, still holding her hands. Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere. The rain plastered their clothes to their bodies, makeup streaking down Phoenix's face, both of them disheveled and exposed in ways that went beyond physical appearance. We should go back inside, Phoenix said reluctantly. In a moment, Fletcher murmured, drawing her closer. First, may I kiss you? Not for appearances. Not for strategy. Just because I've wanted to since that night at the mountain house. Phoenix's answer was to rise on her toes, meeting his lips with her own. The kiss was different from their previous ones, neither the calculated performance for cameras nor the surprised passion of their first genuine connection. This was deliberate, a choice made with open eyes and full awareness of all it might mean. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Fletcher rested his forehead against hers. I think we've given the paparazzi quite enough material for one evening, he said wryly, nodding toward the garden below where several photographers were indeed capturing their rain-soaked embrace. Phoenix laughed despite herself. Thornhill will say it's all staged. Let him, Fletcher replied, tucking her hand into the crook of his arm as they turned toward the ballroom. Some things can't be faked. As they squelched across the terrace, rain-soaked but unwilling to release each other's hands, Phoenix felt something shift inside her, the tentative acceptance that perhaps some business arrangements could evolve into something far more valuable than either party had initially bargained for. Inside, they were immediately swarmed by concerned event staff offering towels and expressions of alarm at their drenched appearance. Lucia pushed through the crowd, her eyes widening at the sight of them. What happened to you two? She demanded, helping to blot Phoenix's ruined gown with a napkin. Phoenix exchanged a glance with Fletcher, a small smile passing between them. Weather forecast was wrong, she said simply. Lucia's gaze darted between them, comprehension dawning as she noted their linked hands and the softness in Fletcher's usually stern expression. I see, she said slowly, a smile spreading across her face. Well, it's about time. About time for what? Phoenix asked innocently. Lucia rolled her eyes. For the Ice King to admit he's thoroughly melted. She turned to Fletcher with newfound approval. You hurt her, I hurt you. Clear. To Phoenix's surprise, Fletcher nodded with complete seriousness. Perfectly clear. As they made their excuses and departed the gala early, whispers and camera flashes following their progress, Phoenix realized they had made a very public statement without saying a word. The gossip columns would be buzzing tomorrow, but for once, she didn't care. In the privacy of their limousine, Fletcher wrapped his jacket around her shoulders despite his own soaked condition. What happens now? Phoenix asked quietly. Fletcher brushed a damp curl from her cheek, his touch gentle. Whatever we decide. Together. The word, together, held more promise than any business contract they had ever signed. Chapter 6. 3 months later, Phoenix stood in the renovated offices of what was now Dupree Ramsey Imports, surveying the transformation. The space blended her family company's warmth with Fletcher's more contemporary aesthetic, heritage and innovation coexisting beautifully, much like their partnership. Her father, now recovered enough to visit the office occasionally, sat in a comfortable chair by the window, deep in conversation with Fletcher about shipping regulations. The sight still surprised Phoenix sometimes, how naturally her father and husband had bonded, two men with seemingly nothing in common finding respect and even affection for each other. "Ms. Dupree?" Her assistant appeared at the door. "The video conference with the Vietnam suppliers is ready." "Mrs. Ramsay Dupree," her father corrected with a wink. Phoenix smiled, still adjusting to the name change, a compromise that honored both their heritages, much like their business approach. As she moved toward the conference room, Fletcher caught her hand, pulling her down for a quick kiss. "Remember what we discussed about the sustainability certification," he murmured. "Already in my notes," Phoenix assured him. "What would you do without me?" "Let's never find out," Fletcher replied, his voice light but his eyes serious. The phrase had become a touchstone between them, acknowledgement of how completely their separate paths had merged into one journey. Later that evening, Phoenix found Fletcher in his home office, poring over documents related to Thornhill Industries. Their joint strategy had effectively neutralized Gregory's attempts to undermine their businesses, forcing him to retreat and focus on defending his own company from the regulatory scrutiny their countermeasures had triggered. "Still working?" she asked, massaging his shoulders as she peered at the screen. "Just finishing," Fletcher replied, leaning back into her touch. "Thornhill's European division is hemorrhaging clients since we revealed his environmental compliance violations." "Couldn't happen to a nicer guy," Phoenix remarked, earning a rare chuckle from Fletcher. He closed the laptop and turned in his chair to face her. "I have something for you." From his desk drawer, he withdrew a small wrapped package. Phoenix accepted it curiously. "It's not my birthday. It's an anniversary of sorts," Fletcher explained. 6 months since you agreed to my business proposal." Phoenix unwrapped the gift carefully, revealing a small velvet box. Inside lay a platinum ring with a stunning emerald surrounded by diamonds. "Fletcher," she breathed, recognizing the piece. "This is your grandmother's ring, the one from the mountain house photos." He nodded, taking the ring from the box. "The only family heirloom that matters to me. I wanted to offer it before, but the timing wasn't right." He met her gaze, vulnerability and strength equally present in his expression. "This isn't about business. This is about asking you, officially, to be my wife in every sense. No terms. No end date." Phoenix felt tears gather in her eyes. "I thought I already was." "You are," Fletcher acknowledged. "But we began with a contract. I want to continue with a choice, your choice, freely made." Phoenix extended her hand, watching as he slipped the ring onto her finger where it nestled alongside her previous wedding band. "Yes," she said simply. "I choose you, Fletcher Ramsay. Not for business advantage or family obligation, but because somehow the most unexpected person became the one I can't imagine living without." Fletcher stood, drawing her into his arms. "Do you know what my grandmother told me about this ring?" he asked, his voice unusually soft. "She said to give it only to someone who made me feel both stronger and more vulnerable at the same time. I never understood what she meant until you." Phoenix touched the emerald, its color reminiscent of the gown she'd worn the night on the rainy terrace. "I think she would have approved." "I know she would have," Fletcher murmured, pulling her closer. "She valued authenticity above all else. Something I forgot until you reminded me." As his lips met hers, Phoenix marveled at the journey that had brought them here, from cold business arrangement to a partnership that warmed them both. The Ice King had indeed melted, revealing something far more precious than his legendary control, a man capable of profound love and commitment, once he found someone worth the risk. And Phoenix, who had entered their arrangement seeking only to save her family legacy, discovered that sometimes the most valuable acquisitions weren't companies at all, but the unexpected connections that transformed business into belonging, and contracts into love. "I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever entered an arrangement with clear boundaries only to find yourself falling right in the middle of it?" Was there a moment you realized something meant to be temporary had become essential to your happiness? Share your stories below and don't forget to subscribe if you're new to our channel.